Welcome to In the Hot Seat. I'm Meg Muir, and it is great to be with you today. So, what is going on in the world of warehouse distribution and the 3PL space? We have a very exciting guest with us today. Joe Spisak is the CEO of Fulfill.com. Fulfill.com, digital marketplace. It's connecting e-com brands with the right warehousing and fulfillment partners and 3PLs coast to coast. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Meg. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, the audience is really excited to have you too and learn all about what you're building at fulfill.com. But maybe share with our audience a little bit about yourself and your background leading up to being a founder of this company.
Yeah, sure thing. I have a pretty crazy story leading up to starting Fulfill probably 2.5 years ago. I'll kind of just start at the top and run through quickly. So I've been in e-commerce for a little bit over 10 years now. My wife and I actually got started by creating a couple of different board games in the tabletop board game space.
Okay.
Um, and we ended up doing pretty well with our games. We did probably 6 or 7 million in sales over the course of
Wow.
X amount of years, and
Yeah.
we started shipping thousands of orders per month, and we got to what I call this graduation stage where you either kind of have to double down and become your own more commercial grade fulfillment operation, or you outsource and go to a 3PL. So we went to outsource, and we ended up going through 3 different 3PLs over the course of a year and a half, and had just a really bad experience all around. So what we decided to do was bring that back in house, right, during the COVID time period, right before that, and we ended up starting our own e-commerce fulfillment center based out of central Pennsylvania, where Carissa, my wife, and I are from.
Okay.
And over the course of probably 2.5, 3 years, we ended up bootstrapping that company very aggressively, purchased a 140,000 square foot building, filled up that location, and then I ended up, selling my brands, selling our e-commerce fulfillment center, and starting Fulfill.com to help connect e-commerce brands and the right fulfillment partners. So you can see how we got here. We kind of took our experience from the e-com side of the house, took our experience from the e-commerce fulfillment, warehousing, and logistics side of the house, and now we sit directly in the middle and play matchmaker.
Yeah, that's amazing to have that direct experience leading up to the type of organization that you built together. So, talk to me a little bit about e-commerce brands and how do they go about finding that right 3PL fit. Coming from your bad experience, what would you advise others to do that are just getting started or maybe looking for a new 3PL provider?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we can take the example of me whenever I had my board game company. How do brands go out and find a 3PL, or how were they doing it in the past before we started Fulfill? And the logical way, how most people did it, was go to Google and search best board game fulfillment near me, right? And then basically you get hit with kind of a list of the same 10 to 20 different, venture capital backed big 3PL companies that have a lot of money that they can put behind ad spend and behind, content marketing and SEO.
Sure.
And, people like myself at that time who were inexperienced with the logistics side of the house, but were great at growing e-commerce brands, you kind of just assume that, like, oh, these are one of the people that we should probably go with. Let's set up calls with all of the AEs at these companies,
Mhm.
compare pricing quotes, and pick what we think is the best option. When in reality, there is 15,000 plus e-commerce fulfillment centers in the United States alone, and we're finding that some of these boutique level 3PLs can actually offer better pricing, better communication, better shipping SLAs than some of these more traditional, bigger folks, where you can just end up being another cog in the wheel. So
Sure.
long story short, I ended up seeing how difficult it was for people even experienced in logistics to find the right e-commerce fulfillment partner. So we ended up setting off on this mission to be able to create this matchmaking program where we will work directly with the brands. We will gather up their information and their scope of work, and then compare at scale against our 650 plus 3PLs across 2,500 plus locations all across the world, and then narrow that down based off of what's important to the brand to a top 1 to 5 best options, so they don't have to sift through, all of the options that they don't even know are available.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, driving efficiency through that process that might take someone that has a small team of FTEs, right, going to figure this out is very valuable. So, talk to me a little bit more about the process. So, I'm a shipper, I'm an e-com play, and I hop on your website. What does that process look like to get started, to learn more, and maybe enter my parameters of what I'm looking for?
Yeah, good question. So it's very simple. It starts out with just a basic form submission on our website,
Okay,
where you will give us your high level information. Think contact information, company name, website, order information, sales channels you're selling on, SKU count. Right, pretty much just your baseline e-commerce fulfillment information.
sure.
From there, we ingest that, and our matchmaking team will get back to you and look to schedule a phone call to start to get into the nitty gritty, right?
Hmm.
Typically, 10, 15, 20-minute call, could be a little bit longer depending on the complexity of the scope of work. Like, we work with folks needing multi-site international
Yeah,
locations and are doing hundreds of thousands, millions of orders per month. So obviously
sure.
that's going to take a little bit
Longer.
longer.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
but once we gather up that scope of work, our matchmaking team will take that information and then use our back end matchmaking software that we've built, and
Mhm.
that's where they can holistically look at all of these 3PLs in our network and then start to narrow it down to our top 1 to 5 best options. And although this isn't a hard rule, this probably 95% of our opportunities fall under this. We tell people, brands that we talk to, within 7 days, we'll be able to find you faster, cheaper, and overall more efficient 3PL, and we'll come back to you with those options. From there, we basically present you our picks. We let you know why we think they would be really good options for you, and then the brand basically tells us, like, yes, I thanks for the 5 options. Maybe I only want to speak to these 3, or
Mhm.
yes, go ahead and set up calls for all 5 of these options. The brand will talk to them, and then we will help you guys compare pricing, service levels, etc., to come to a final decision. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's really how our process works.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. So your matchmakers are actually helping coordinate the calls with the right points of contact at the 3PLs, and then can also help with RFP review and analysis as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, technically we are a marketplace and we have a really robust 3PL directory on our website where people come and do research and can look up 3PLs based off geography or based off of niche or specialty services, or the list goes on and on. But really the core function of our business and what we do the best is we're a matchmaking marketplace. So it's a white glove handheld matchmaking service where we take off all the pain of having to find a fulfillment center for e-commerce brands and just companies in general.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know there's so many different nuances about space. The commercial real estate space. I'm just thinking of St. Louis specifically because I'm based here in St. Louis, and we're a big medical community, right? And so regulatory factors, regulations on sites holding medical equipment or hazmat product is certainly something that's really challenging here from a warehouse perspective. So if there are certain nuances about the actual business, I'm assuming that's all part of the process, right? That you're vetting out and understanding in relation to the 3PLs that are selected.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what we've built our matchmaking software that our team uses to do. So, like, whenever we bring on a 3PL to our network, we have an extensive onboarding process where we're collecting all of their information, right? Like,
Mhm.
specialty verticals that they ship for, warehouse locations, how much space that they have available, how much their monthly order volume is. The list goes on and on and on and on.
Sure.
And whenever we are work with the brands and we gather up all their information, we're taking that information and we're pinging it against our database to find top options based off of hundreds of different variables that contribute to finding a great fulfillment partner. Like you said, specialty vertical. Like, if we know this brand is an apparel brand and they have
Mhm.
1,000 different SKUs and they're shipping 5,000 orders per month, it makes sense to narrow down the network to apparel specific 3PLs that have done this at a really high level for other apparel brands,
Sure.
because we can induce that they have good small parcel rates, they have good return processing, Maybe it gets more specific than that, and this apparel brand needs to hang up their goods via like hanger storage,
Yeah.
or they need a special returns process where the garment needs to be cleaned or something like that.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
we have all of this documented in our system, so we can match make effectively, and brands don't have to go out searching themselves.
Yeah, that's really interesting, right? Because the frequency of product turn varies significantly from one 3PL to another, and just understanding that. Talk to me a little bit about the distribution side of the house. So, if e-com has reverse logistics or something on the distribution side, do you guys get involved with that end, or is it specifically around the 3PL warehouse component? In a silo.
Yeah, no, good question. And we're really a catch-all for finding a warehouse solution, right? We specialize in e-commerce fulfillment, and that's our bread and butter. But
Yep.
we have folks coming to us for all different sorts of niches and criteria, like maybe like long-term storage opportunities or
Sure.
reverse logistics specific opportunities.
Yeah.
We do a ton of Section 321 stuff, like you,
Yep.
you name it. Like, and even if we wouldn't be the best person to help you, which if you're looking for a warehouse, we are.
Right. Sure.
We can probably point you in the right direction. Like, we have lots of partners in our space.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can basically handle all of that to answer your question.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I mean, it's unbelievable when you hop on your website and you just see your scroll at the bottom with all your partner, relationships that exist today. It's really unbelievable. So, talk to me a little bit about what makes a 3PL a good 3PL, and when is it the right time for a brand to potentially switch 3PLs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's lots of factors that play into someone being a good 3PL or not, but I like to narrow it down to three core pillars that I think brands should really care about.
Okay.
One, pricing, especially in today's existing e-commerce climate where uh, people are having to tighten up, right?
Yeah.
Facebook ads aren't working quite like they used to, and
Sure.
people are having to diversify in order to continue to grow their companies. Um, uh, with fulfillment taking up 10 to 20% of the revenue for an average e-commerce brand, like, it's very important to find a partner that is economical, that you can scale with. So pricing is kind of bucket number one. Communication is bucket number two. So back to my example of having my brand and going through three different 3PLs over a year
Yeah.
and a half.
Sure.
Um, One of the main reasons that some of those 3PLs didn't work out was because they were so big, and our communication process was, you know, um, sending them an email, which got sent to a VA, which put into a support ticket, which got triaged down to the team, which then
Yeah.
somehow made it to the warehouse. And by that time, it's 72 hours later, and we're saying a prayer hoping that our problem can get solved. Like, the best 3PLs, but the best e-commerce fulfillment companies act as a true extension of your business. And to have real-time communication via Slack, or being able to pick up the
Mhm.
phone and talk to the people on the warehouse floor that are picking and packing your product, um, can drastically increase your chances of that happening. And then three, just shipping SLAs, right?
Mhm.
So what are the receiving timetables like
Mhm.
for whenever you're sending in inventory? Does it take them 4 weeks to receive everything, count everything, put it on the shelf, upload it to the warehouse management system, or can they get that done in a couple of days? When a customer places an order on your Shopify, your Amazon, your eBay, your Etsy, are they able to package that order, slap a label on it, and get it off to the carrier within 24 business hours?
Mhm.
And then maybe even more importantly, like, is the 3PL going to actually put some teeth behind that in the contract and say, hey, if we do mess up, if we don't hit our SLAs, we're going to refund you for the cost of that order, or for the
Sure.
value of that product, or for something like that. So
Yeah.
a combination of those three pillars right there, I think, is most important when deciding, is this a good 3PL or is this not a good 3PL for me?
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. So I'm assuming that kind of feeds into the when to switch 3PLs as well, which can be challenging, right? I mean, you've been through that process 3 times, but they become somewhat sticky, right? Once you're integrated. So talk to me a little bit about changing from one 3PL to another, and how challenging that might be.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy is you don't want to change a 3PL if you don't have to, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's a huge pain in the ass.
Yep.
It's you're obviously losing money from the sales that you have to lose whenever you're down and switching over.
Yeah,
There's a freight cost. Um, there's smart ways to do it where you can kind of offload inventory at that existing 3PL, and as you deplete that, you can ship directly in from your manufacturer to your new 3PL
Mhm.
partner. But
Yeah,
more of
sure.
the story is there's still a lot of moving parts. It's going to cost money. But there's a 38% year over year turnover rate with folks switching to find a new e-commerce fulfillment center.
Wow.
And that is a stat that Shopify released in one of their like annual logistics reports maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm sure it's changed maybe a bit from then. But once I saw that, I knew that we were in the right business and doing the right thing with fulfill.com, because nobody wants to actually have to change their fulfillment
Yeah,
center. It just
absolutely.
it just shows, yeah. But if 40% of people are having to do that on a
Crazy.
yearly basis, you
Right.
know that there's just people aren't getting quality service out here and aren't finding the right matches. So to kind of bring this all back around to answer your question, I think you know the brand has to decide when that is the right time to switch their 3PL. But you can take
Sure.
those 3 pillars that I kind of discussed and look and see, hey, do I think my pricing's too high? Are my shipping SLAs crap?
Yeah.
Are these people hard to work with? Do they act as an extension of my business? And if you have a couple question marks on that, um, we're a great option to shop that out and take a holistic look at some other options,
Sure.
because we offer this as a free service for brands. So it's kind of like, why wouldn't you at the very least see what else is out there? And at the very worst, you come back with a couple pricing quotes that you can take back to your 3PL and say, hey, like, could we try and get our pricing a little bit better to around what we're seeing out there as an
Sure.
industry average? Boom.
Yeah, here's market. Yeah, no,
Here's
that makes a
market.
lot of sense. So, talk to me about some changes that you're seeing in the 3PL space for this coming year. Are there any major changes that are happening right now that the audience should be aware of or understand?
Yeah, it's crazy because every new year I start in the e-commerce logistics space, I always like think to myself, holy cow, there is just so much changing and
Yeah,
evolving right now. It's such an
sure.
exciting time to be in this industry. And I think some of the people that have been, around logistics for decades and decades now may look at something like that and not be super thrilled about it because it adds more complexities to their operation
For an
and what they're going to
operation.
have to do to
Yeah,
be competitive.
sure.
But for people like us, like I love that because it just means there's so much more opportunity out there, for new 3PLs to join, for new niches to be started, for e-commerce brands to push into new categories to grow. So I think that's super exciting. A couple of spaces that I've seen this year in particular that I'm really excited about that I think could change the landscape. I'll touch on two things because I could talk about this for a while. One is the growth in live shopping. So if you look at China's e-commerce fulfillment scene, live shopping is enormous over there, especially in the cosmetic space and trading cards and a few other categories. That is a very popular way to do shopping, is to watch other people. They come and promote products, you buy it live, it gets shipped to you. It's a very cool experience if you've never done it before.
Yeah,
Well, now with the advancements in TikTok Shop and eBay pushing into eBay Live, um, it's oh, it's coming to the US and it's coming fast, and it's going to
hmm,
be very popular here as well. It's only a matter of time. And what comes with that is interesting um, logistics challenges that arise because people want their stuff fast. And also, people are typically live shopping, like the people that are presenting the actual product, almost in a warehouse setting, right? Like you have all of these SKUs surrounding these folks. They have mini booth in there, and then they're bringing
Right.
up these items and then
Yeah.
presenting them and selling them live. So I've seen some 3PLs in our network start to almost merge into these live shopping content fulfillment centers, which
Mhm.
I wouldn't have thought 5 years ago in a million
Sure.
years that you would see, these content booths in these million square foot warehouses,
Wow.
where people are starting to hire 5, 10, 50 different live streamers, and they're just going around the clock as people are in the background fulfilling these orders as well. Like it's pretty crazy seeing an advancement like that. And then the last thing that I'll just touch on really briefly is just a further push into omni-channel fulfillment. Back when I had my brands, it was you have a Shopify. Once you get a little bit bigger, you add in Amazon FBA or FBM, you add on Walmart.com, and then you maybe settle around there and look to push into B2B and retail.
Hmm.
Now you're trying to push into as many different marketplaces, as many different channels as you can easily integrate into your warehouse management system, into your logistics partner. Like if you could be on 50 different niche marketplaces and you could
Sure.
wholesale on fair.com and the list
Hmm.
goes on, and
Yeah.
it all goes directly into your warehousing team and they see it all the same and can still bulk print labels. That is a huge advantage to brands. So those are just two things that I'll touch on right there, that I think are going to be really interesting to keep our eye on in 2024.
Yeah, that's awesome. The live shopping would be incredibly interesting, and that's so neat that you're seeing that in warehouse spaces today
Yeah.
too. So we always like to end the show on what you are most optimistic about. I know Q1 is behind us here in a few days, but talk to us a little bit about 2024 and what you and your team are most optimistic about for the year.
That's a good question. I'm really bullish on 2024, and I'm super excited about this year. For me personally, uh, so I just got married last year, and my wife and I just decided that we're going to start trying to have kids. So I'm very much
Awesome.
looking forward to getting on the baby train here. And in terms of the e-commerce logistics scene, I'm really excited to continue to help out brands find the right 3PL partners this year. We are currently talking to a little bit over 300 brands a month that come to use our free 3PL finder service. We've helped several thousand folks up to this point, and our business is really starting to snowball as people see the value of our service and are really excited about coming to use us to find the right home. So for me, I'm just really excited to continue to ramp up our volume, help people out, and continue to do what we can to improve the e-commerce logistics landscape.
Well, congratulations. It sounds like you've got a lot going on personally and professionally, and we really appreciate you joining us today, Joe.